Hey everyone, I got something on my mind I've been wanting to talk about for a while and thought, why not make a video about it? So, one thing I've noticed for a while is that we've been getting a lot of remakes and remasters lately, like an absurd amount in my opinion. And ever since the PS5 and Xbox Series X released, we've been getting even more. I mean, in 2023 alone, we got Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dead Space Remake, Metroid Prime Remastered, Kirby Return to Dreamland Remastered, System Shock Remake, Mario RPG Remake, and many more coming in 2024 like Silent Hill 2, Persona 3, Reload, and Metal Gear Solid, to name a few. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to remake or remaster a game, especially when the game is in dire need of an update or is stranded on old hardware. I'm just saying there seems to be so many remakes and remasters that it's starting to seem a little excessive at this point, at least to me anyway. Ever since these new consoles came out, we've gotten so many remakes and remasters, and we're starting to get a lot on the Switch too. Now, when a remake or remaster is done right, there's very little I have a problem with, but then there's cases like The Last of Us Part 1 and Skyward Sword HD where there's little to no difference from the original. But my main concern is how it seems like most games releasing in this current generation of consoles are either remakes or remasters with few new games mixed in, whereas previous generations didn't have this problem. We're getting to a point where some people look forward to remakes and remasters more than new IPs, I feel. I'm guilty of this myself. I mean, my most anticipated games for 2024 are Persona 3 Reload and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door Remake. Now, keep in mind, I'm mostly talking about AAA developers. On the indie side, they're basically flourishing with new IPs and originality. There are a few indie games that are remakes, like System Shock for example, but the amount of indie game remakes is minuscule compared to the amount of AAA remakes. So really, I think could all come down to creative bankruptcy and/or laziness in the AAA field of things. Not all of them, mind you, but when you have more remasters in the franchise and actual new games in the franchise, then I'm starting to see the problem. You know, like The Last of Us. There's more remakes and remasters in The Last of Us than there are actual installments in the franchise, which is just insane to me. Now that leads me to the question, what is a good remake or remaster? Well, I think there's a few answers for this question. For one thing, if a game is so severely outdated and is stranded on old hardware, then I think it deserves a remake or remaster. I mean, look at Demon Souls Remake for one thing. It's a one-to-one creation of the original, but with updated graphics, and it finally got off the PS3, the device it was stuck on for over a decade. So I think it's great it was remade, and it's definitely a focal point for From Software as a developer, and basically was a proof of concept for a new genre of game known as the Souls genre, which is one of my favorite genres. Another reason I could see a remake or remaster being justified is if it's a game that's really old and hasn't really aged too well, but is considered a classic, then yes, I do think it deserves a remake or a remaster. A good example of this would probably be System Shock Remake or Resident Evil 2 Remake, where those games are so old and ancient and probably haven't aged too well that a remake certainly seemed to be in order, especially for System Shock. That's a DOS-era shooter, for those of you that don't know. But then there's games that don't deserve a remake or remaster that get one anyways, because why not? Like, for example, Last of Us Part 1 Remake. Yeah, this game did not need to come out. It was already remastered on the PS4, backwards compatible on the PS5, yet they decided to remake it anyways, and you can barely tell any differences from the original, other than the graphics look slightly better, or the lighting looks a little different, and that's pretty much it. Or you can go the Nintendo route of charging $60, aka full price, for a remaster, where it's basically just a resolution upscale and that's it, like Skyward Sword HD or Mario 3D All-Stars. And yeah, occasionally Nintendo will make a remaster that's fine, like Metroid Prime Remastered, which was actually outsourced at Platinum Games, so that probably doesn't count. But then there's Kirby Return to Dreamland Remastered, which actually adds more content to the original game, so Nintendo isn't terrible at it, but they definitely need to step up their game when it comes to remasters if that's what they want to do. And then there's Sony, where that's basically all they're doing is remaking old games at this point. This is just something I want to rant about real quick, is how the PS5 is mostly just a remake machine. I mean, really, think about it. Demon Souls Remake was a launch title. Spider-Man Remastered is one of their big titles, which is just a PS4 game that looks slightly better on the PS5. Then they have Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, which is just basically telling you to buy the game again just for a resolution upscale and HDR with a little bit of DLC that you can't buy separately. Or Death Stranding Director's Cut, which is basically the same thing as Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, where they just made a lazy resolution upscale with HDR and it has some DLC that you can only access in the Director's Cut. You can't buy it separately. And then they, of course, remade The Last of Us, and now they're remastering Last of Us 2. Anyone tired of The Last of Us yet? I am. I don't even like The Last of Us that much, honestly, but that's a video topic for another time. But getting back on track, they also released Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, which is just Uncharted 4 and its DLC remastered. PlayStation in particular seems like they really like remakes and remasters, which is kind of starting to bother me. I mean, yeah, Nintendo has remakes and remasters, but they haven't really been doing it as consistently as PlayStation, at least for right now, but 2024 seems like there's going to be a lot of remakes and remasters on the Switch, which I'll get to later. And yeah, before you say anything, I know they've been making new games too at PlayStation, like Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, Ratchet & Clank, and all that. But I'm just saying, like, they seem to have more remakes and remasters than anything else. As for Xbox, they don't really put out very many remakes or remasters, but then again, they barely put out any games in general, which they really need to fix, which is also a video topic for another time. But yeah, 2024 for the Switch looks like a lot of remakes and remasters, and I'm starting to wonder if Nintendo's just going to start doing the same thing Sony's doing right now. I mean, for 2024, we got Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake, along with third-party remakes I mentioned earlier. Now, this might just be small releases for the Switch as it's nearing the end of its lifespan, so maybe they're just doing remakes and remasters for it just to kind of settle down the first-party release as the Switch 2 arrives, so I don't know, maybe that's the case. Or this could mean we're getting more and more remasters and remakes going forward with the Switch 2, which I'm not really happy about because I'd rather have new games. Now, I don't believe we're never going to get new games again and it's all just going to be recycled, rehashed old games forever. That's not what I'm saying at all. Of course, we're always going to have new games. Remakes and remasters aren't going to take over the industry. I just feel like the resources and money being used on remakes and remasters could be better used on new IPs and new experiences. But I also appreciate a remake from time to time too, and I do know that they're easy money too, and a lot of these companies don't want to take risks, at least a lot of them anyways. I personally don't think anything's going to change with how the industry is going. Like, me making a video about this isn't going to change anything. These are just some thoughts I wanted to share. Now, all in all, I don't think this is a huge deal. It's just video games at the end of the day, and some developers are doing a good job with remakes and remasters. I just feel like publishers are taking advantage of this trend to sell people the same games over and over with little to no changes or improvements. That's why I think there are too many remakes and remasters nowadays. What do you think? I'd like to get some more opinions on this. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.